Hi and welcome to Josh's Bookish Voyage. I'm Josh. In this video, I'm going to be doing the new Booktuber book tag because, surprise, I'm new. Let's start. I'm going to be referring to the list just in front of me. Why did you start this channel? Because I love reading. Obviously, that's the main thing. Part of it is just because of my love for reading and particularly my love for Booktube and the passion that it's inspired in me to read more and to read a more variety of books. I already do a blog where I talk about the books that I read. And so I made this decision to, one, get in a good rhythm of thinking about what it is that I'm reading so that I can talk about other people, but also so I retain the information long term. And I think it's working out really well. The more I watch Booktube and the more reviews I watch, it gives me a better idea of how to critique a book or to think about what I like. I think Booktube is a good way for me to continue this process where I carry over what I'm already doing on my blog to here, where if I put the work in to think about what I'm writing in the blog, I pretty much have material ready to present on here. And last thing I'll say is that Booktube is so much fun to watch, and it seems so inviting. I would like to be a part of this very kind community that exists. I don't consider myself the best reader. I listen primarily by audiobooks because I'm a grad student, I don't have much time. What are some of the fun, unique things you can bring to Booktube? I don't want to pretend like I am somehow unique from everyone else. I'm probably going to do what I see others do that I think are exciting. That said, as a graduate student, I have a focus in planetary science, specifically space science. Because of that, I'm a big fan of all things space, and I tend to read a lot of space-related books. While I'm sure it probably does exist, it's not something that I hear a lot of talk about, which is to say space and physics-related books, which can be actually really fun, especially some of the really weird ones that are out there. And I have a few books that I can't wait to talk about because it does really excite me. And besides that, I like to think that I have a certain level of energy. And while other people have that energy, I always think there's room for more energy in Booktube. Because who doesn't love an excited person talking about books? Why are you most excited for... What are you most excited for about this new channel? For me, it's a few things. One, I found myself reading more when I started watching Booktube. But also before then, when I started blogging, I found myself excited by the prospect of having this blog with me talking about the things that I'm passionate about. And every time I post something, I would look at it and I think, wow, this looks really nice. I can't believe this is my blog. I think I'm just excited by the idea of sharing what I love and seeing it come to fruition. When it comes to the new things like this, it's hard to know for sure if it's something I'll stick to. I hope it is. And I'm just really excited if that's the case because I would love for this to be a long-term passion of mine. I find Booktube to be very supportive when it comes to reading. And I love reading. Therefore, to better ingrain myself into the Booktube community is just to better ensure that I maintain this passion for reading, because it's the passion that I don't want to lose. Why do I love reading? Well, it's a good question. Why does anyone love reading? Let's put it this way. I am doing a PhD now. I've been in school for 10 years. Some would call me a career student. Part of that is just I have a passion for learning. And while I recognize books are often just for fun and not really learning, part of me still feels like reading is a learning process, because even if it's not necessarily a textbook, every book is the thoughts and the voices of someone, perhaps alive, perhaps dead, confined in this little tiny book. There's just something about the thought of consuming their thoughts, their ideas, that makes me feel like I'm bettering myself. And of course, then there are actual non-fiction books, so I feel like I am educating myself in some material. I guess the short of it is that it makes me feel smarter. Now, I recognize it's not that simple. You have to actively seek out the right kind of books if you want to educate yourself. I read because I enjoy it. I also read to learn. I feel as though by making reading such a major part of my life, I get to still have fun while also spending more time educating myself than I otherwise would have. These books that I've wanted to read, a lot of the educational books that I want to read, I would normally neglect because I recognize that if I was reading just that, I would lose interest. But now I'm at a point where I can read books that I enjoy. It didn't work in other books that I might be worried about, that I might be afraid of, because I'm afraid I might not be able to enjoy it as much. And even when I don't, I'm able to get through it and then switch back over to something fun. When it comes out in the end, I find myself overall learning more than I would have otherwise. For me, this works. One thing I love about reading is that I can get so lost in an audiobook while I'm biking, cleaning, doing baking. There are so many different things I can do while I'm reading. There are other things I can do actually reading a physical book, like riding the bus, where it's something I used to hate all the time. I used to despise riding the bus. But now I started reading on it, and it's like sometimes I seek out the bus ride when I could avoid it because I know I want to get a bit more into this book. And most of the time I read physically, it's going to be on the bus. So it's one of the many ways of entertaining yourself. So of course that's one reason to love it. And of course it sort of goes back to my childhood. I don't know where I got the passion to read. I do remember one of the youngest books I read was the Magic Treehouse series. And I can only assume that my parents bought that for me and my sisters to read. And so I guess I owe part of that to them because I always was all about reading more of those. And eventually in high school, I was never the biggest reader, but I got into one particular author and I became really obsessed. And on my 18th birthday, I flew me and my dad from Georgia down to Miami to go and visit him. I mean, it was only Miami because it was the closest place he was going to be to me, not because I wanted to go to Miami. And I still have all the books he signed, even though I don't necessarily love the books as much as I used to. It was something that helped ground me in this passion for reading. It's something that I was so excited for, and even if I don't necessarily feel the same way about that author or those books, I look back on that time as a really good part of my life because it's part of the reason I think that I kept reading past high school because I remembered the excitement that it's possible. What book or series got you into reading? Well, I guess I already said the Magic Treehouse. Spoilers, my apologies. And the one I was referring to would have been the Cirque and the Demonata by Darren Shan. One is a vampire series, the other one is a series based off of, I want to say it's like just demons and magic, with the main character being a werewolf. And I always loved magic. Honestly, I prefer magic and demons over vampires. That's why I fell in love with the series. It was gruesome, it was dark, it was YA horror, and I've always had a passion for horror, even back then, and I do still today. While I did love Harry Potter, I started late. It was when the movies were already out. I started reading the 5th book, and so I already had a passion for reading then. I don't hear a lot of people talk about Darren Shan, and rereading it, I understand why, but still, at the time, I was all for that shit. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? This one is hard, but obviously the first one I'd have to ask is, would you please be my friend? And I'll leave it at that. No, I think the biggest thing that I found trying to get this started is how the hell do you do it? How do you make time to edit? It takes me so much time. I don't see how you could possibly have time to read and edit and have a regular life outside of YouTube and work. It's just, I am terrified that I'm going to fail because of the editing it takes. I'm going to try because this is fun for the reasons that I've already said, but I am worried. The next question is, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? And that's the very one. I don't know how you all manage to make time to edit, because that is the biggest obstacle. I don't mind the reading. I love the reading, and I don't mind putting myself out there and looking weird in the process. But obviously, I'm only human, and I only have so much time, and I want to make this work, but I would be really sad if I can't. When did I start reading? I already talked about how I read as a child the Magic Treehouse series, and that tells you it must have been around 10 or less, probably. I'd have to ask my mom or my dad, to be honest, because I really don't remember. I remember it was high school when I started making conscious effort to start buying books on my own. Where do you read? This one's easy. Pretty sure I already mentioned it, but I read by listening to audiobooks when I clean and I cook. I love both of those things because one leads to the other. I read when I do my laundry. I read when I travel by bike or just by walking to the bus, and then when I'm on the bus. Other than that, I like to read on my couch on occasion, but I prefer either doing it on the bus or when I'm in a similar sort of traveling situation where I'm just sitting there waiting. I've done some reading at the coffee shop, which I find a good place to focus. And that's about it. Now, last question. What kind of books do you like to read? My favorite books are definitely horror, sci-fi, and fantasy. Last year, I ended up reading a lot more because of Booktube. It's gotten me to read more books, but also more variety of books. But before that, it was always going to be a mix of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. I do enjoy other types of books. I've come to enjoy contemporary, not really romance, but a family drama. I'm all for the family drama. I need just good characters, compelling characters. I don't need necessarily a fantastical life to be compelled and interested in the story. Some historical fiction I enjoy, Greek mythology, if you count that. And there are certain periods that I find I do enjoy. Probably anything from the 20s and newer, I probably enjoy. It's the Victorian era that really I have trouble getting into. Other than that, I do read some nonfiction. The nonfiction I do read is primarily going to be a memoir, either of some kind of significant figure in the past or of some type of celebrity that I'm a big fan of. The other side of nonfiction would probably be science books. Specifically, the type of science books that tend to be physics, theoretical physics, or astronomy type books. I'm really into books that talk about the greater framework of existence, because it really just reshapes the way I perceive the nature of reality, like the most exciting parts of science today. That's what I like to read. This has been Josh's Bookish Voyage, and thank you for watching.